Okay, I think we're going to get started here. So again, thank you for joining us today for our Get to Know Nexenta webinar. My name's Bridget Warwick. I'm the CMO of Nexenta, and welcome to you all. We're going to take about 20 minutes to introduce you to Nexenta and our products today, and at the end of that we will open up for questions. We'd like you to use the chat window to post your questions at any time during the webinar, and we will do our best to answer them at the end of the presentation part. I'm speaking today with Mike Letschin, who is a Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Nexenta. Mike has been with Nexenta for almost 2 years and has spent much of that time as a Senior Sales Engineer. So he understands how Nexenta products are deployed across a wide variety of use cases and customers. Mike's also a VMware vExpert and has spent the past couple of months working on our launch of Nexenta VSA for VMware Horizon View, which we announced a couple of days ago and which we will touch on in the second part of the presentation today. As a final housekeeping item, let me let people know that we are recording the webinar today, and it will be available for replay after the event. We'll let you know when that's up and available. And let's get going. Welcome, Mike.
Hi there.
So, let's start with an overview of the Nexenta installed base of customers, moving you on to the second slide in the presentation. As you can see, Nexenta sells across a broad section of the market today and is commonly deployed in several high-growth data use cases within those various segments. Mike, you've spoken with a wide range of prospects and customers in the past couple of years at Nexenta. What would you say are the top 3 questions that people ask about Nexenta?
So really they tend to come with things like, well, what makes Nexenta special? Why are we different? How are we different than the traditional storage partners? And then things like, is it difficult to manage? So that's great, it's something new, but everybody wants to be able to manage it a way that is smooth for them and is easy for the administrators, for both the software and hardware standpoint of things. And then how do they actually get it once they learn about it? They always want to know, so that's great, how do I buy Nexenta? What's my process?
Yes, I would imagine since we do the software rather than the hardware, they often ask, do I have to integrate it myself?
Yeah, it comes up all the time.
Okay. So let's take each of these 3 questions in turn. What makes us different? Are we difficult to manage? And how do you actually buy Nexenta Store? And look at the answers. And we're going to do that using several customer case studies as examples. So let's start with what makes Nexenta special or different. Why do people choose Nexenta Store versus continuing with NetApp or EMC or whoever their installed storage vendor is, for example?
So really there's a lot of reasons. I mean, as you look at some of the highlights on here, we offer that unified file and block storage, so it's truly unified, whether it's you want CIFS, NFS, whether you want Fiber Channel or iSCSI, you can get that good file and block storage all in one. It also runs on industry standard commodity gear, so whether it's on some of the Dell stuff, whether it's on HP, whether it's on IBM, it doesn't really matter who it is on that. We obviously have some reference architectures for that, but it gives you a lot more capability, a lot more flexibility. That goes into, though, why the actual core of the product really does a difference. Because we're based on the ZFS File System, we get a lot more capabilities out of it. There's a lot better data integrity. So you get things like checksums on all your blocks of data. You get unlimited snapshots, unlimited clones. We include things like inline deduplication and compression and thin provisioning. The things you'd expect from an enterprise storage array today are already included in it, but you're getting it with the flexibility of using other product set. Another thing that people always like on it is that we offer it as a perpetual license. So once you buy Nexenta, and maybe you put it on that Dell hardware to start with, 3 years down the road, you want to upgrade that hardware, go to a different vendor, you can do that. You simply switch the license over and continue to use the software, so you don't have to learn an entirely new storage platform every time you do an upgrade on your gear.
So we have, Nexenta Store has the basic, all the enterprise features that you would look for, like snapshots, auto-tiering, dedupe, compression.
Right, all that stuff that you expected, you should just have in your enterprise storage array. At this point, that's status quo. If you don't have that, you're not presenting an enterprise array. to somebody. So all those feature sets that you're looking for and the capability and the compatibility with things like VMware for the hypervisor, or whether you need to put it on Exchange and you want block storage for that. There's a lot of different capabilities you can use with that, and they're all set into the product already.
Great. Okay. So at the heart of Nexenta Store, yes, we serve block and file today, and we're working on object, although that's not the purpose of the topic for today's webinar. At the heart of it, though, is the ZFS File System. So what's so great about the ZFS File System?
So there's a lot of issues with the traditional file systems of today. There's things that you have issues with data corruption that most people don't realize it, but if you get, as things grow and the larger your data set becomes and the longer it sits there, the better chance you have of that data. It's the same, it's still disk. Disk goes bad no matter who you are, so you need to protect against that, and the software needs to help that. So by doing things like having checksums on blocks of data above and below the data you're looking at, making sure you can almost self-heal the file system. We look at things like that to help save your data and make sure your data is always secure where you need to be. We also do copy on write technology, so we don't move your data, we copy your data when we're doing tiering. And that tiering is something that's always needed, and the hybrid storage pool of ZFS gives you the capability to do that and use SSD as you want, use spinning disk as you need, use memory, and get that capability across the board. There's also a performance improvement that you see. Because of that tiering and because of the way we can deal with RAID sets, we're able to give things not only protection with RAID levels of 1, 2, 3 drives of parity even. So for these large disks, you do a 4 terabyte drive. It takes a long time to rebuild a 4 terabyte drive if one goes bad. So if you have 3 of them in every RAID set, it gets you that extra savings. You then take memory into play, you take the latest SSD into play, and you can get better performance improvements across the board.
Okay. So what problems or challenges do customers bring to a discussion with Nexenta? What are they looking for us to solve?
Well, it's really probably industry-centric, and you look at things, you look at some of the cloud providers and some of the things they've done, and it's all about how do they get economy of scale with the gear they're looking at. So when they've can get commodity hardware with that name brand stuff, maybe they want the Dell, maybe they want the HP, they still want that high-end gear, but they want to be able to manage it. They need to know their gear. They need to know each individual piece of it throughout. So they look at often for that for virtualization aspect. They want to have a way with it. Whether you've got financial institutions, they've got tons of individual little files. Every time you go to apply for a mortgage, there's 70 pieces of paper you have to sign to buy a house. Well, that all becomes an individual file over and over and over. So large file repositories that they need to use. And when you've got a file system that can handle that size and the number of volumes, it really helps out somebody like those institutions that need to have those big sets. And then you can go into even other areas like media and entertainment. It's little teeny files that they're using to come up with how to render the next great animated film that comes out. So whether you want to go to the movie theater and see that latest movie, well, you need to know that there may be thousands of files per each one of those minutes that they're putting together, and they need to have a way to compile those. So they need that section. Then you get into government, education, which I'm sure some of the people are with, and they've got huge home directory setups that they might be using, and they may be spread across multiple geographic areas. So you want to be able to provide that from a centralized system that has that data integrity still. They want to make sure their files are where they're supposed to be. It could be tax data. You need to make sure that tax data stays consistent, whereas people are not very happy with you.
Indeed. So in each case, the customers found that their current storage vendor can't keep up with the business demands and is looking for usually something more from the scalable and performance perspective, but also, of course, everyone is looking to drive down the cost of storage today. And separating the software from the hardware allows for more productive conversation about, well, how do I drive the price of that hardware down? Well,
of course, when you're looking at the commodity hardware that you can install it on, I mean, most storage arrays, it's a server for head nodes and some disk. Well, that's that commodity price that the largest hardware vendors in the world compete to drop that price every day. So why would you not take advantage of that for your storage as well as the rest of your environment?
Right, right. So let's move on. You already talked about some of the limitations of most of the file systems today, and every file system has got its strengths and its weakness. How would you talk more specifically about ZFS? What would you call out about ZFS?
So the graphic here is a Merkle tree. It's a great description of how the ZFS file system is built. When you're looking at driving down, there's checksums above and below. So you get the best data integrity with a 128-bit file system to get you the data you need when you want it. When you're looking at a snapshot, that same Merkle tree comes into play. So instead of having to take capacity out and performance out, it simply adds another entry point in, and your data is still secure. So data integrity is really at the core of everything we do with ZFS. From there, it's being able to use the hybrid storage pools and, again, tier your SSDs, your HDDs, and even using the memory of the head units. Really, those servers, you can now do 192, 256, a terabyte in RAM on some servers. Well, as that improves, why would you not want to be able to use that for caching the capability that you can't get on a lot of other systems? You're not limited that I'm going to only allow you to have 16 gigs of cache now in your system. You can start growing that as your solution grows and as the product grows. And as Moore's Law allows systems to grow, you can grow with it because now the software just layers on top of it and uses the hardware. I mean, it's great because with that, we've got a solid background that we're used to. ZFS has been used forever. It was developed by Sun. We've got over 5,000 deployments around the globe. There's 700 plus petabytes of us that we manage of storage. So, I mean, that's an astronomical number. I mean, I can just remember not long ago, you'd think a few petabytes. I mean, 700 petabytes is a massive amount of number. That's how many people that use it, so people are secure about where it's being used, who's using it.
And that's just Nexenta store,
That's
right?
true. That's just
other companies have deployed ZFS.
Right. It's not accounting for the other guys out there. I mean, when Oracle bought Sun, they got ZFS with it. So they're using ZFS on their system. People know Oracle. They're going to trust that it's ZFS. They trust that that's the way to go, and it's the battle-tested file system that needs to be out there for today's enterprise environment.
Okay. So let's move to the second question that people ask. I think we've addressed the first one, or at least given folks something to think about. But the second question people ask is Nexenta hard to manage? Let's take a real customer example and step through the deployment with ease of management as the focus.
Sure. So this is just one that we've dealt with along the way. Queen Elizabeth Grammar School is one that they use this our Nexenta store as a back end for virtualization. They've got a vSphere environment. They wanted to find a solution that was, again, more cost-effective, more flexible for them. It's a school, so not only do they have virtualization, but they also have file storage that they have to use. So they're able to get multiple different aspects all within the same storage array. They actually have a couple of terabyte, they have two 12-terabyte arrays that they're actually replicating, so it's a smaller environment for them. It's not the hundreds of petabytes for them, but it's a standard traditional enterprise, small to medium enterprise that was able to use Nexenta and grow their solution and get something that really fit their needs.
So would you say this customer is typical for a first-time Nexenta purchaser? How do people usually get into a relationship with us? Do they buy small and then go broad?
So a lot of times they come in buying a piece for maybe one environment. Maybe it's for a test dev environment. Maybe it's for the lab environment for a university that has student labs and they want to put storage for the student labs. And each one they kind of build and get used to. I think it's with any technology. People need to get used to what you're doing. So a lot of times they'll come in and, like these guys, they used our 45-day trial that we provide to be able to get in the door with it, test it out, make sure it worked for their environment, and then they were able to grow from a small solution and a little bit bigger as it goes.
Okay. So let's look at a different customer now because, as I said, we're deployed across a wide variety of market segments and use cases. Let's look at a different customer with a very different set of requirements. Let's look at a cloud service provider.
Yeah, obviously a completely different use case than what a school was looking at before. A cloud service provider is all about that economies of scale and how do they take something and really grow it and make it work for their environment that they can do their own thing. A lot of the larger enterprises, these providers, want to have that commodity gear, which they have. They're looking on HP gear with some data on shelves that they built this out with. The great thing is they actually have used Nexenta in more of an automated way. There's actually a ways to use things like Chef to deploy some of the configurations for Nexenta. So with them having 10 different servers that have Nexenta on it, they need to deploy at a more rapid automated basis. And being software driven now, we can actually let them deploy us on that software basis the way they need. So they kind of build their own one, and they can get what they want. It's not necessarily the way you have to do it, but they like to build their own, and a lot of the service providers are going that way. With them, it's with CloudStack, and it's using Zen and some of the latest software-defined networking integrations into it. And when you tie those things in along with things like Chef, you can get a really advanced solution and grow it. And that doesn't mean you have to be the size of the service provider to do all this. It just means that it can grow to that scale, and they have that capability.
And if I remember correctly, Schuberg Philis has a great value proposition. They guarantee 100% uptime to their customers, don't they?
They do, which was key to the support side of things. They really wanted to make sure when they started looking at us that we were able to provide true 24/7 support. And that's one of the things that we've been around for 7 years. So we've developed a support mechanism and a support group that we can do that, to whether it's using some of our premier partners that augment some of the support, and they'll take that level 1 and level 2 if you buy a total solution from them. If you're building it like Schuberg does, well, we can take that 24/7 around the globe support and still get them the support they need to be able to drive their business. It's obviously very important that their storage stays up if you're going to guarantee 100%, so they need to make sure that our support can handle it.
Right. Okay, let's look at one more customer example. Let's look at someone in the healthcare industry and use them to answer the third question you mentioned at the beginning, which is how does someone buy Nexenta?
So this was with Delano Regional. Delano was just like a lot of the different healthcare places around the country, around the globe that you look at, but they wanted to look at both for server virtualization as well as a VDI use case. So they were looking at desktops, which was a much different I/O footprint. The desktop is a much heavier write environment than it is read, where the servers are a lot higher read I/O. So they're able to tweak their environment and put Nexenta Store in. They actually used the Supermicro environment. They bought Supermicro and put us onto it using the drives that they needed. In this case, they're using some SSDs as well as some for the L2R for their read, as well as some of their spinning disk. But they had the option when they looked to buy. They could have either bought, like they did, where they bought the components using one of our reference architectures. So we've got reference architectures built with most of the major hardware providers already that include things like what servers you need, which components are in them, with some performance and benchmarking numbers that we've looked into, and we've got those statistics on what can you do. But you could also go with one of our premier partners, and our premier partners give you that all-in-one solution. So if you want to buy something that's already installed, it's in a box, you put it in your data center, you plug it in, and you're good to go, that's where those premier partners really come into play. And they have that option as well. We have thousands of customers that do just that and go through our premier partners on that option.
So what do you think it was that convinced Delano to switch storage vendor? It's a pretty major decision to switch storage vendor for any IT team. But healthcare is traditionally a very conservative type of customer, and obviously for good reason. What do you think it was?
Well, there was a few major aspects for them. One was it was a cost decision for them. I mean, they looked at upgrading their traditional storage vendor, and it becomes you're buying a whole new thing every time. So when you look at doing that upgrade, and when I go back to that perpetual license, you're not buying the software license again. You're buying that hardware upgrade as you need it. So that was a big deal for them. They were constrained on their I/O, especially when you're looking at VDI. When it's very write intensive, you need to be able to get that spread out more. And then the last was probably they needed a DR strategy. There was a solid DR strategy at that price point they could hit. Especially with some of the new regulations for healthcare, they have to make sure their data is always there and available, or else it becomes a major issue for them.
Okay, fair enough. So let's move to look at a typical deployment with Nexenta products. Let's just talk us through the common deployment scenarios, like, will you?
Sure. So when you look at this, probably the big thing is it's that consolidated storage, NAS and SAN across the board, and then you've also got things like the HA cluster. HA cluster allows you to have failover between head nodes. So in, for instance, the primary data center on the left-hand side, you've got two head nodes. Either one of those could fail, and you get that fault tolerance you need. Again, something you need in an enterprise-class system, but something that can scale all the way up, giving you cache coherency across. So when that's a big deal when you start looking at larger cache spaces. You want that performance of cache, it's got to be available at all times. So you actually have that capability with the HA. And then still being able to do replication for between different sites, between our primary and secondary, and that's just for traditional Nexenta Store. And then from on top of traditional Nexenta Store, we've also got the things that augment that and products that are more of automation suites, like our Nexenta BSA for Horizon View, that's listed at the top that can sit on top of an Nexenta store, can sit on top of multiple different storage platforms. It's a storage agnostic solution, but it gives you the automation, provisioning, and storage acceleration for a VDI environment as well.
Right, and in fact, we announced the product just this week. We'll be demoing it at VMworld next week, and you can download a 45-day trial from the website. But it's not just storage; it's something different. So maybe you could just talk us through a little bit more about what the heck is VSA for VMware Horizon View.
So NV4V, as we like to call it,
yeah.
to shorten that down a little bit, is really an application-based VSA. The virtual storage appliance is part of it. That gives you the performance acceleration, but it also integrates for an integrated storage and compute solution, whether it's from deployment of desktops through the performance, through calibrating the storage as you go, plus adding feature sets in like a DR solution for your desktops, being able to do snapshots for continuity of operations. You get a lot better options on what you can do with NV4V to be able to grow that environment. When you need to go from POC to production, it's obviously a pain point for VDI deployments at this point. This gives you a way to do that. And the performance metrics, the trending, allow you to see what you can do from the start all the way through. So it's a little bit different than just a straight storage play, because now you're looking at automation, you're looking at performance. And there's a lot of different things that are capable with that. You're using possibly an Nexenta store on the back end, maybe a third-party storage. So there's a lot of different things there. It doesn't always have to be us, but it still gives you acceleration using a VDI environment from there.
Right. In fact, I would say it's storage agnostic.
Right.
Right. Which we haven't talked a lot on this webinar. We haven't talked at all about the fact that we are software-defined storage, but this product is a great example of true storage agnostic application-defined storage. So frankly, I think this product deserves an in-depth webinar all on its own, and we are going to be offering that in the near future. We just wanted to give you a taste today as part of the Get to Know Nexenta. And it would be great, folks listening in, if you could use your chat window to indicate your level of interest in hearing more about this particular product from Nexenta. And if you are interested in it, please check out the product overview video, which is available from our website. Okay, so I think we should open this up or start looking at any questions that have come in. Thank you, Mike, for stepping us through the Nexenta overview. I would encourage folks on the webinar to look on our website at our case studies and other papers. Maybe check out the VSA for View product overview, and of course download the trial version. Let me take a look and see if we've got any questions that are capable of being addressed on the webinar. I see some very detailed questions, but I'm looking for something that can be answered
well, we can say
easily.
The one for a little more information, there is that reference architecture from Cisco with the NV4V. So if they want to look at that, that's available now. If they just do a search for Cisco and Nexenta, it'll come up. It's the first link on Google right now.
Perfect.
So
okay.
that's the one I know. Looks like the rest might be. We can follow up with some people.
Okay, fair enough. I'm looking for other questions, and again, I see things that we will follow up with individuals offline, but probably not anything suitable for the general. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. We are pretty much at the end of the time allotted for this. I'd like to thank everyone who joined us for today's webinar. We'd love to get your comments on the content and invite each of you to connect with us via Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and all those other cool things that you can do to talk to us. Feel free, of course, to contact the sales team or just keep doing research on Nexenta. Thanks for your participation, and we hope to continue the conversation when you're ready to do so. We will be letting you know when the recorded webinar is available. Thanks, everybody.